When the pandemic first hit, I mean, our first thought was obviously to our customers and how our business customers were going to react and their employees. And so one of the first things we did is we got together, and under the CARES Act, we were allowed to provide payment relief. So whether it be, a customer could come in and make interest-only payments for up to 6 months, or if they wanted full principal and interest relief. So we worked with those customers, and we gave payment relief on more than $300 million in customer loans. And so for our bank, that's a meaningful size, and I'm happy to say that much of that has really come back into payment, and businesses are making their payments and they're off of payment relief. So that's a good sign for local economies. The second phase was the PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Act. I think a lot of folks understand that, and we did about $200 million in PPP loans, and about 80% of that were legacy farmers customers that we work with, that we're used to coming in and we're talking to. And so right from the very beginning, we did a modest underwriting with them to kind of give them the sense of how the process worked. Would they be forgiven on the back end? And so many things changed. That was we were doing that all as different things were coming out about the program. But we really tried to work with the borrower to get that money in their hands, because they were trying to keep people on the payroll, keep the doors open during the lockdowns, the statewide and really almost a full countrywide lockdown. It was they were interesting times, but now on the back end, we think that for a great majority of customers that really helped, and we're starting to see people apply for the forgiveness. We're starting to see the SBA give the forgiveness, so it's kind of coming full circle and really closing the gap. As far as the vulnerable industries, I mean, there are industries out there that we keep a close eye on. But I will say this again, our belief is, to this point, the great majority of businesses, the stimulus has helped. There are some, though, that have had to adjust, whether it be hotels, or we all know about restaurants and how they've adjusted. And what we're seeing is the really good operators are kind of figuring out ways to do it, and they might have had to scale down operations and become more efficient and lean, but they're able to keep the doors open and keep running. But certainly, we do keep a close eye on them, because obviously the exposure has been pretty broad.
This is such a divisive time. How does that affect your client relationships? What are you seeing locally versus nationally?
Yeah, it's we kind of view Washington. Obviously, there's a lot of division there. I mean, as we kind of shoot this, there's confirmation hearings for a Supreme Court justice, and you see the back and forth. But I think the focus, when you think regionally, statewide, and even locally here, needs to be on each other and friends and neighbors. And I think we do a really good job of keeping that focus, because whatever side of the political aisle you are on, when I walk around the streets of the Mahoning Valley, it certainly seems like everyone's trying to work together, and we're kind of rowing in the same direction. We care about, as I said, we care about our friends and neighbors, and whether customers, we have kind of all makes and models of people that come in and do business with farmers, and we welcome that, of course. And I think as long as we maintain that focus of making a stronger, I'll say Northeast Ohio and in the Western PA region, as long as we continue to make that a focus and do what we can here in our markets to help one another and to further one another, I think we'll be in good shape regardless of what happens in Washington.
There's been a lot of revitalization in Youngstown and a lot of areas, actually. Are you concerned at all on the setback we're having now, or what needs to happen to fully recover?
The Mahoning Valley is tested. We've been through a lot of different setbacks, and that's the one thing. We're pretty resilient, and we share, I know, the farmer story, which is really the story of Northeast Ohio, with investors all over the country. And it's really interesting. We typically say, we didn't fall off the roof, we fell off the curb. I mean, things in the Mahoning Valley, we typically never get too high, but then by the same token, we keep things in perspective and don't usually go too low. So I think being a tested market, being a tested community is proving to be really valuable. And I think as we continue to evolve. I mean, the job that the Youngstown Incubator, as I said earlier, is doing, and the innovation that's happening there, and some of the excitement and the growth of Youngstown State, and I know some of the really strong small business leaders that we have in the Mahoning Valley. I think those are the bright spots, and we need to focus on those bright spots and continue to try to grow businesses. And I think we'll come through it okay. I mean, what we're observing, is now we're a more diverse economy. I mean, I remember growing up in the days where, General Motors was such a large percentage of our workforce. And now today, as you think about how much more diversity there is in the workforce, I think that gives you strength, and I think it enables you to weather the storms a little bit better, including a pandemic.
Focusing back more on the banking industry itself, we've seen a lot of mergers, a lot of name changes in our market. Why is that? Is that a cause for concern? And, what is the future for small banks, regional banks in our country?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think consumer choice is important. I certainly appreciate that mindset, and that it's good to have those choices. And I think also part and parcel to being a bank, and many times publicly traded banks, there are kind of forces of nature that make you think about those things, and whether it be desire to operate more efficiently, or do more lending, or broaden your market, your market reach, or your mission, or your vision. There's a lot of different things that cause banks to merge. And I know, for instance, we've done another number of mergers over the past few years, and the primary thing is cultures. We look at cultures, and we make sure that those mesh, and if those mesh, then we continue conversations. And so I think that that's really important. I know that not every deal is struck that way. Some are compelling financial transactions, or done for other reasons. But from the standpoint of consumer choice, I mean, banks, we had 14,000 banks 25 years ago, and that number's down to roughly 6,000 in the country. And so, is that a concern? Yeah, I mean, but I think the public understands. We've seen it in many different industries, and how consolidation works in business in America. And hopefully, what I'd like to see is potentially new businesses, come to life. And though not necessarily true in banking, we see those all the time. That especially with the development of different technologies and the way people do business. I think as long as we're creating business, and that's why I really believe we have to foster small business and do everything we can. And when I say small business, I define it as employers of 500 and less. That segment of America, of our economy, is so important to what we try to do. It creates job growth. They create more patents than the large patent companies. They pay almost half of payroll tax in the country. So those small businesses are so important, and those are the ones that you see. If we can foster creativity and innovation out of those small businesses, I think great things can happen.
Built for the 21st century American workforce, Eastern Gateway Community College has 2 campuses and is a national leader in online learning. EGCC.edu is a digital gateway where 30,000 students are quickly transforming their financial futures through degrees, certificates, transferable credits, and higher-paying jobs. And now, residents of the Mahoning Valley can enroll in summer classes for free. It's the EGCC Summer Guarantee. Eastern Gateway. America's new workforce starts here.